many times people would say to me, what's it like to be Gerda's daughter?
But many people over the years have talked to me about my mother and their interactions with my mother and how much they loved her and what she did for them.
The year was 1928. There was nothing particularly extraordinary about the baby. They named her Gerda after her maternal grandmother. She turned out to be pretty, smart, and talented. She was in most ways, however, fairly ordinary. Though her family was not rich, their lives were abundant with love, laughter, learning, and homemade fun. By society's standards, she was unremarkable. She never became famous or wealthy, but she excelled in the things that mattered most and last the longest. Like the virtuous woman of old, her children arise up and call her blessed, and her husband also, and he praiseth her. Her positive influence is still felt in the lives of the thousands who she loved and served. But the true legacy of her life is most pronounced in the lives of her growing posterity. Ironically, many of them never really knew or even met her. This story is particularly for them, the rising generation, to give them a glimpse of this ordinary girl who accomplished extraordinary things and left them a heritage of hope and a legacy of love.
This is Helaman Pratt, born in Mount Pisgah, Iowa, Pottawatomie County. When he was born, they stopped the wagon for a half hour for that baby to be born and go on. Bertha Wilkin, born in Salt Lake City, 17 May 1863, German descent. Harold Wilkin Pratt, born in Colonia Dublin, Chihuahua, Mexico, 16 July 1899, is my father. This is Lars William Hendrickson from Sweden. It's my mother's father. 19 July 1861 was his birth. This is his wife, Gerda A. Reinholdsen, for whom I was named, born in Sweden also, 17th of May 1872. And this is their daughter, Anna Hendrickson, my mother, born in Fruitland, New Mexico, and died Chihuahua City. She was born 21 September 1901. This is myself, born in Mesa, Arizona, the 5th of August of 1928. This is myself again against the apartment wall in Mexico City when I was probably about 2 years old. The next picture is taken in Colonia Dublin with my mother, Anna Marie, Lucille, Bill, and I. I'm standing just to the right of Mom. The old Pratt home is the background. This is a picture in front of the mission home in El Paso, Texas, with Bill and myself and Berta at 3531 Fort Boulevard. This is the ranch house at Hawk Creek Ranch in Nevada, where we lived from 1940 to 43. Anna Marie's on the dark horse, Lucille and Cheetah are on the white horse. This is Gerda and Lucille and myself, who are all high school age. We're at the ranch in 1943. This is a basketball team. St. Mark's Hospital, my one claim to fame, when I won a game 7-6 with 3 baskets. This is my friend Nora Graham in Carlsbad Caverns. And this is my graduation from nursing picture in 1950. This is our wedding day, Carl and myself, on the grounds by the Logan Temple, 20th of July, 1951. This is our reception at Gaskell and Amy Romney's home at 1523 East 900 South in Salt Lake City. I was wearing a borrowed wedding gown. And our line at the reception, Alma Ann, Glendora, ourselves, Dan Taylor, brother-in-law, Alla Haynie, Anna, and Harold Pratt. It's a picture of Carl and I dancing together when we lived in Peru. Don't we look like we're having fun? 2 more pictures of us. One was taken while we were in Provo in 1962, and this next one is while we're living in Orem in about 1982.
There's a lot of things that I learned from her. I felt like people were always her priority. I felt like she managed every other part of her life to prioritize being able to serve people.
I was thinking about Mom and thought that I wanted to write her a letter. Dear Mom, you died on Emma's birthday. Where are you? What are you doing? Is Heavenly Father with you, and are you happy? I do miss you. When I see you again someday, will you be happy? I appreciate you being my mom. I love my childhood memories of you being there. You taught me about awareness and other people. You shared everything about your life and experiences, and it opened a big world for me. I felt and feel like the sky is the limit, and I had every opportunity. I want to laugh a little. You always told me that you were sad that I got your hair. Me too. Please do whatever growing and changing you need to do in your new sphere, and I will try to do the same here in mine. Love you, Becky.
Her patience and her love of the gospel and her sense of the importance of the family relationship and the eternity of families, and all our vacation time, all our money was towards going to family reunions, and that was the most important thing for us, and that came from Mom. This was when I had a motorcycle. I was 17, hopped on the motorcycle, took off across the field where there's all houses now. Was in a hurry to get to work, came out the field onto the T of the road, cut the corner pretty close, and as soon as I hit the corner, I looked up and there's a car coming. And I hit the brakes, and the motorcycle skidded out in front of me, and the car slammed to a halt about 10 feet away from me. It was Mom. She'd almost run over her oldest son, but she never brought it up. She never said another word about it, but I learned a lot from that.
And so I'm grateful to have the opportunity to testify to you of this choice daughter of God, understanding that from a doctrinal point of view, a daughter of God is one who has received the gospel through the covenant of baptism, and then the higher covenants received and made in the temple of the Lord, has felt the love of the Lord, and through obedience and humility has been sanctified by the Holy Ghost. Thus prepared to have this peaceful passing and to be welcomed on the other side by a loving Father in heaven. Gerda Pratt Haynie was born on August 5, 1928 to Harold Wilkin Pratt and Anna Hendrickson in the then small town of Mesa, Arizona. She was the third child in a family of 10, 9 girls and 1 boy. Gerda is the only one of those 10 children born at home and without even a doctor in attendance. And it was a small home right on the corner of Center and Main Street in Mesa. But those were the days before refrigeration and air conditioning, and anyone who's from Mesa, Arizona knows what August is in Mesa. Gerda was born, was soon scarlet red with prickly heat, suffered intensely. These were depression years, and the family business folded, and they made a move to Array, New Mexico when Gerda was just an infant. They were only in Array a short time, and then an opportunity came in Mexico City with the Ford Motor Company, and the family moved to Mexico City. At age 5, they made a move to Colonia Dublan, Chihuahua, Mexico. The father was called as president of the Mexican Mission, and at that time the mission included all of the southwest states of the United States as well as the Republic of Mexico. He had California, Arizona, New Mexico, Texas, parts of Colorado, and all of the Republic. So he established the mission home in El Paso, Texas. And there it was that Gerda began her formal schooling. It was just a few years after that the mission was divided, and they decided that the Mexican mission would comprise just the Republic of Mexico, and so our family moved to Mexico City once again to establish a mission home there. And Gerda continued her education there in the American school. When her father was released as mission president, the family moved for a short stay in Clint, Texas. Schooling continued there, then on to Barstow, Texas for another 3 years. The next stop was Hot Creek Ranch in Nevada. Her schooling continued there in a little one-room schoolhouse on the ranch for the first year. The next year, Gerda and her older siblings moved to Lund, lived in a tiny apartment with Grandmother Pratt, and Gerda attended school. And I wish I could paint a picture for you of those years. Gerda was in band, Gerda was in drama, Gerda was in the choir. She was on the debate team. I just stood in awe of that girl. She did and loved everything, and did it well.
She was very musical, quite good musically, and had been trained to sing and to play the piano, and really wanted her kids to learn all of that as well.
She loved music. She never felt like she was that good at the piano, but she was, and she, I think, instilled that love of music in all of her children, one way or another.
You can serve without loving, but you cannot love without serving. The inscription on Mother's headstone, which says, "Love personified," is as descriptive of her person and her character as any words that I can imagine. The distinction of having served as a Relief Society president in 3 different countries. She could see a need and was so inclined to meet those needs whenever she could that service was a middle name.
I have a really fun memory. I was in the Student Org Relief Society presidency my second semester. We were focusing on being temple worthy, and she came up with the idea of making temple bags as part of this. It was a Relief Society conference. She got all the material. She cut all the material. We made 128 temple bags on a Friday and Saturday.
At the end of her career, she crocheted enough doilies for each one of the employees to have one.
How many is that?
Probably 80 to 100. Wow. And then she asked me, which I was very honored, that she would ask me to do a flower arrangement on half of the doily. And then she presented them at a staff meeting, and she gave me credit for the part that I had done, and it made me feel really good that she would acknowledge that I had participated in her project.
I remember once for an employee appreciation party, like National Nurses Day or something, she crocheted doilies for each and every person, and just little round doilies that then she attached a flower to. It's been so many years, but I still have the one that she did for me, and I put it on my wall. It's always looks good, but it always reminds me of her.
And when I worked construction, probably 3 different summers, I was a big eater. I'm very, very hungry at lunchtime, and I took close to a quart of peaches every day for lunch, and she gladly gave them to me. The fact that she worked full-time and had homemade bread every day when I came home from school, always there, always available, she just way over-serviced me. And so that, the way she showed her love was through constantly being there for you. She was an expert at teaching us and helping us at Christmas time provide Christmas for another family or more without them knowing it. I remember one family in particular had an old beat up car, the trunk wouldn't close, and we worked it out to where they couldn't see us. No one was close by when we took stuff out of our car and filled their trunk with stuff. I'll just never forget that. Vivid memories of Christmases provided for other families.
She, to me, is the epitome of Alma's instructions about baptism. A willingness to bear one another's burdens that they might be light. A willingness to mourn with those who mourn and comfort those who stand in need of comfort.
When she was a very caring person, she always served others. I think her ability to organize and control her life, her devotion to the Savior, her desire to live righteously in all that she did, her acceptance of other people who maybe did not live up to her standard, and she could still serve them with love and devotion.
Gerda was always the peacemaker in the family. Being a large tribe, we could contend from time to time, but Gerda was the one who always tried to get us back to base one. But there were a few exceptions, and there at that ranch, one of the things that the best memories I had is of seeing Gerda steal a big plate of fudge that Anna Marie had just finished making, rushing into the bunkhouse, locking that screen door, and she and Lucille devouring that fudge while Anna Marie stood outside lamenting her loss. So she had her moments. The next move found the family up Diamond Fork Canyon, just off Spanish Fork Canyon in Utah. It was a 2-mile hike to and from the highway where we caught the school bus. Occasionally, if the snow was heavy, we didn't make it to the school bus, and we actually even hitchhiked into Spanish Fork to school. I remember she taught the entire PE class the Jarabe Tapatio, the Mexican hat dance, to be performed as a halftime activity at a sports event. She was a great student. She graduated from high school there in Spanish Fork.
And the first thing I'd say is she was without guile. She was totally pure and just completely honest and completely trustworthy.
Gerda was loving, intelligent, incredibly hardworking, and a host of other virtues. But I know a lot of people, I'm happy to say, that are loving, intelligent, hardworking, honest. One virtue that Aunt Gerda had that I don't think I've ever met a single person that had as much as she did is authenticity. She never appeared to be happier than she was. She would say what she thought. You knew how she felt. If she was joyous, she felt joyous. If she had a complaint, she aired it. She knew who she was. She spoke her truth. She had something to say. She stepped up and said it. She seemed so genuine and one of the most authentic people I've ever known.
She was very well organized, very respectful, very good to work with me, detail-oriented, knowing what people should be doing and following up well. Very good manager that way. A good term to describe her would be the salt of the earth.
Yeah.
Just very plain spoken. Smart.
Was obviously very intelligent and had trained herself as a great nurse.
Just that she was always very kind to everybody, and always very understanding, and for the most part always cheerful.
Forthright. Just told it like it was. Quite blunt.
Did she do that with her boss?
She probably did at times. She's very respectful.
Patient with so many little children. Even to be. That's the look on her face that was on my mother's face. Just the look of patience and love that you get with a lot of little children.
To me, her greatest talent was her awareness of others. I remember talking to her when she was first dealing with the reality of her illness. She was concerned that she would lose this awareness, and I assured her that she never would, and she never did. On one occasion, she came out to get in a car filled with family, and she said, "I don't remember you, but I know that you are good people."
She had faith, total faith that she knew who she was and why she was here.
She had a strong testimony and based her life on the gospel of Jesus Christ. She was very interested in others and a wonderful listener. She was quick to notice others' needs and respond.
She was a healer. And our whole family mourned when she lost her memory, my siblings especially, because she was our medical advisor.
I guess I always knew that she was going to be a nurse. She always had interest that way, but there were tragedies that occurred through life that helped me to know that's where she would go. One of them was when Bill was gored by the bull as we were milking cows in the morning. It was still dark, early morning, and his dad managed to get him to the house. Mother nearly passed out, but Gerda was right there, helped him do what was needful and get him to the emergency care that was needed. And then when a hunting party farther up the canyon during hunting season, a little girl threw some bullets into a fire. Naturally, they exploded and her hand was nearly blown off. Her mother grabbed her and came rushing down the canyon and into the ranch. And it was Gerda again who gave the necessary first aid and got them on downtown to help. So as she graduated from high school, that was her objective, was to become a nurse.
She was just always so service-oriented and enjoyed people enough. Her sincere interest in everyone was such that she just welcomed them, as it were, and her ability to do so was such that they felt it and they knew that it was a sincere.
etc. Lester went, it was in September of 1963, and he had gone as far as he could go with the company schools where my dad was working, so he went to live with you in Monterey. And well, on a particular weekend, he and a friend had a bet that they could hitchhike from Monterey to Nashville and back, and be back in school Monday morning after leaving school on Friday afternoon. Aunt Gerda and this friend's sister, he lived with his sister, ran into each other on Saturday and found out that the boys weren't where they said they were going to be. And when Lester got back to school Monday morning, he found out that Aunt Gerda knew that he'd lied. And rather than face her because he was ashamed, he turned around and left and went and joined the army. And so for 3 weeks, nobody knew where he was. So Aunt Gerda had to write to my parents and say, I don't know where your son is, he's gone.
She loved my children, and they all felt that. 2 of my children lived in your home while they were away on missions for extended periods of time, and were made to feel so welcome. But she'd meet each one, and you know, they loved Aunt Gerda because she loved them, and they could sense that. So many people would come to Sunday dinner, and sometimes it weren't even your lifestyle, or people that maybe lived our standards, but they were people that she had learned to love and was trying to help.
All the Pratt cousins knew that they were invited to the Haynies to tacos on Sunday, and Carl and Gerda looked out for all of them. She was always gracious enough to be excited when 12 noisy, active children arrived at her door. She loved my children, along with all the other cousins, and knew them well enough that she could serve them and counsel them.
She did a couple of secretarial jobs to get financing going, and then moved to Clearfield, Utah to work at the Naval Supply Depot along with her sister Lucille. They lived in a barracks there until the family sold the ranch and moved to Layton, Utah, as Dad worked with the Bracero program. It was a tiny home, just 2 bedrooms, a full empty basement with an oil furnace right in the middle, and 1-car garage. So Mother and Dad and our grandmother had the bedrooms upstairs. All the girls had beds around that oil furnace in the basement. Bill was relegated to the 1-car garage. These were difficult years for the family, and Gerda and Lucille helped the family so much financially. What a blessing they were.
I guess one of the only complaints I ever heard that she wished she could have had money for piano lessons sometimes, or for other lessons that she really couldn't. And I think she was very, very careful in what they spent. She made a pumpkin pudding that I dearly, dearly loved. And I asked her about it later, and she said, "Oh, that stuff." She says, I made that because it was just the cheapest thing I could make to feed a big crowd of people. And possibly her Sunday tacos were the same thing.
I remember her commenting one time when she did food orders that generally those on food orders ate significantly more richly than we did. Like, I don't remember her ever saying we can't afford it. It was always just, so what can you do to, and we'd have yard sales or we'd lemonade stands, or we can do this if it really matters to you. I'm sure we can find a way.
Oh yeah, we were poor, but not so that we'd know it. Very frugal out of necessity. I mean, we didn't have a lot of money, and we were very economical because of that. And we didn't we didn't go to movies. We never ate out.
It was always a limited budget, but we're never poor. We always had what we needed. It was amazing to me.
I never felt like poor at all. I felt like we grew up with abundance of everything that we needed. But at the same time, when she decided we could afford orange juice, everybody got a half a cup, and everything was allotted out. I definitely got an extra sense of fairness from Mom. Cut the ice cream, that's right. So she found a way with limited resources to still have treats like the cookie dough with one chocolate chip on each side. You know, the cookie had 2 chocolate chips, but I thought that was normal, isn't it? Don't everybody?
And the tiny gifts they gave that made such a difference, that made life so joyful. I remember them bringing a beautiful bedspread to Mother, and what a joy it was for her. And it was there that I received my first dress purchased in a store. Gerda had bought it for herself. She brought it home and she opened the bag, tried it on and modeled it for us. Oh, it was beautiful. And seeing my adoring eyes, she said, "Why don't you try it on?" And I did. And she said, "Oh, it looks better on you than it does on me. You keep it." What a treasure it was. And that's the way she was, always caring for others first.
I remember hearing that as a child she was called Gerda the Grumbler. But I never understood why, because I didn't see that part of her at all. Lucille and Bill just teased me unmercifully, but Gerda and Anna Marie took up for me and took care of me. So from then, she was just the person that loved me.
Probably the most non-judgmental person I've ever met. Truly loved everyone and never judged them one way or the other. She accepted them as a child of God and would do anything she could for them. As I think about my interactions with other people and how I deal with other people, and I think, wow, my mother probably would have done that a little differently.
Thought of is that she always made you want to be better than you thought you could. She made you want to just do better and be better, that you wanted to do whatever you could so that you felt like she was justified in her faith in you. And we knew that she was disappointed in choices that we made, but she wasn't disappointed in us. It matters what you decide, because you definitely, the consequences are yours to deal with. But I love you no matter what you do.
To this day, I'm blown away by the freedom, both Monterey and Mexico City. The freedom to just go.
People's behavior was always separate from who they are. That view of all of God's children in the same way, to me, has been one of the greatest impacts on my life.
I've more been thinking about the things that I taught my mother. Every once in a while, a child comes along who can put their feet to the fire, test it a little bit. More than anything, I guess I'm grateful for her. The concept and the thought that was shared with me often was that I was never a bad person, I just made some bad choices. And that concept alone was sufficient to help me to continue to pursue making good choices, even though I was weak in some of them. But in Mom's eyes, I was never, ever anything but the best, regardless of the choices that I made. And for that, I was grateful for Mom.
The family then prepared for a move to Chihuahua City, Chihuahua, Mexico. Gerda entered nurses training at St. Mark's Hospital. Gerda lived in the nursing home and attended classes at the University of Utah. She graduated from her program in an elaborate ceremony that was held in the St. Mark's Episcopal Cathedral in Salt Lake. And I wish I could describe for you the pomp and circumstance of that. It was one of the most beautiful things I had ever seen. A choir came in, dressed in their choir robes, singing. and they were followed by the clergy and then members of the staff, then the student nurses that were still in class, the officials of the hospital, and last of all, the 11 graduates marched in, dressed in white starched uniforms and turkey caps and red and white capes, and each carrying a beautiful arrangement of American red roses. And Gerda was awarded a pin as the outstanding nurse in her class. My parents were so proud of her and her accomplishments.
She loved your dad, and she was absolutely faithful and tender, and appreciated him for just, I think she saw your dad just for what he is, and she respected that and loved it and appreciated it, and made a happy life.
Together she decided that she wanted to go visit one Carl Stephen Haynie, who was then in Mississippi. She boarded a Greyhound bus and made the trip. She'd met him as he lived with her brother at BYU, living in a small trailer as they went to school. He then had gone off to Mexico to work with the Aftosa program for a couple of years and then had gone into the military. And so she made the trip. She returned wearing the most beautiful diamond ring I had ever seen in my life. And she was radiant. She was so happy. She had dated much during those years we were in Salt Lake, but she always compared everyone to Carl, and no one ever measured up. They were married in the Logan Temple on the 20th of July, 1941, with a lovely reception afterwards at Aunt Amy's Romney's in Salt Lake. From there, they made their way back to military life in Mississippi. Then as one schooling transferred to another schooling, they made their pulling a little Airstream trailer all the way from Mississippi to Denver. And that's where Carl Stephen Haynie II joined the family in September of 1952. The next military move took the family to Columbus, Ohio. It was here in Columbus that Becky was born in 1953. Then Carl left military service and they returned for schooling at BYU in the fall of 1954. And the twins, Glenn and Harold, put in their appearance just 4 days after Becky's first birthday. There they were, Carl in school and working part-time, Gerda working nights at Utah Valley Hospital, 4 children in diapers, so I moved in. And what an experience. I saw such love, such commitment to family, such commitment to the church. What a strengthening time it was for me. But I prayed from that day forward I would never have twins, and the Lord answered my prayers.
I think one of her biggest challenges was to balance home, church, work, and family. She was a master of discerning what was most important and simplifying her life.
Probably her greatest challenge was her own personal health. I don't remember that there was ever a day that she totally felt healthy, and yet never ever really complained about it. She just did what she needed to do no matter what.
But it seems like her shoulders would hurt to even comb her hair or curl her hair or whatever, that she was in pain, but no, it didn't slow down.
I think about her wearing out a bad hip joint, defective to begin with. Went through all the pain continually, and then they finally said, oh, those are defective. And she was never a complainer, ever.
As school days wound up and Carl graduated, then the opportunity came for them to accept employment in South America, in Peru, with the Southern Peru Copper Corporation. Carl worked there as the safety inspector. Joseph and Lucy joined the family while they were there, and Gerda and Carl were so involved, not only with family, with friends, but with the church, building up the church in that area, even helped in constructing a chapel there. Carl working in the leadership of the board, and Gerda there as Relief Society president. Then they returned to BYU. Carl to enter a master's program. But before he finished that program, an opportunity came to join the church educational system in Mexico. So they moved to Monterrey, Nuevo León, Mexico, to direct the schools in the northern part of the republic. And here Eva joined the family in September of '63. But the moves didn't stop. Next was off to Mexico City to assist with the schools in the southern part of the republic. And then the decision was made to return to Utah and bring the family back out to the United States and for Carl to complete his master's program at the Y. Gerda came early and began work with the public health system in Utah County. Carl joined her in the fall and they purchased the home they now reside in on 8th West.
On June 2nd, 1985, Gerda was sustained as the Relief Society president. I was the bishop. He was a fabulous Relief Society president. That day she bore a very short but sweet testimony of the gospel, so typical of Gerda. And it was sort of like this, so what's all the fuss about? Let's go to work. We gotta go. Gerda was compassionate and deeply caring about people, as you've heard.
And at the time when I was working with her closely, I was going through a hard time in my life, and I was accepting phone calls from my ex-husband. And she called me in there one time in her office, and she said, "You tell him he can't call you here at work." Okay, so next time he called me at work, I said, "You cannot call me anymore. My boss says so."
She was on your side.
Yes.
I don't think anything ever came up that was too big for her necessarily, but I think she was open to talking it over with people and trying to find the best solution for everybody.
You knew that you knew where you stood.
Yeah.
I was
gonna
say, yeah.
I wouldn't call her a drill sergeant, but yet you knew that you needed to meet a staff meeting. That was very important.
It's very common in the workplace to have conflicts between people, and arguments and feelings and game playing again. Politics or personalities.
Sure.
But you never saw that with Gerda. You seriously never did. I mean, it's not like she didn't have problems with employees, but she handled them so professionally that you didn't ever get the hard feelings.
No, I can't remember ever yelling or getting angry with anybody.
Yeah.
I can remember being patient and trying to teach people if they, like a new employee that wasn't doing well.
Just a steady, wise, calm leadership that never created problems and yet managed lots of problems. She was, I think, the first person from Utah County Health Department to ever receive the Beatty Award. And every year at the annual Utah Public Health Association meeting, a person is awarded this. So it's always because of terrific lifetime service in public health. And then in the write-up, it was explained all about her great work over all these many years as the nursing director. And she was selected to be the recipient in 1993. The Beatty Award is the main top award, and that's a very big deal. It's the ultimate award that public health people merit and are awarded.
And I'm sure that the hardest of all was when she had Alzheimer's toward the end of her life and realized what was happening. I think I heard the story once that she had people's names inside the closet door. When she couldn't remember a name, she'd kind of excuse herself and see if she could go and check.
Her husband, Carl, called and asked me to come visit. And I didn't realize how bad she was, but he said, "Look, you're a physician, we want you to be here so that you can sign her death certificate, and so we want you to see her and visit her before she passes."
I loved my communication with her so much that when it was gone, it really made it difficult for me.
And even after it was really serious, and I'm not sure she even knew who I was, but we'd go visit, and it was just, "Hi, beautiful," with this huge smile. And I just felt so loved.
It took her from us long before she was gone from us. And I'll never forget how many times Dad said it, but it always impacted me. She's paid her price. She's done what the Lord asked her to do. He must be leaving her here to test us to see if we're going to do what we're supposed to do.
The day that Mom passed away, I had been praying to Heavenly Father to let me be there. It was a Sunday night, and I was getting ready for bed, and this thought came into my head, she's going to pass away tomorrow. Secondly, it was on my birthday that she died, and I felt overwhelmed that she would share her death with me on my birthday. You know, she brought me into this world, and even as she was passing away, she was trying to help me understand life and the beauty in it.
Insofar as her communicating, why it was limited, she would respond certainly to your music.
And probably others have expressed how music seemed to have impacted her no matter what, because that was just who she was. She was full of music and loved music. I can remember being over there with Jared and Carrie and the family, and we were singing songs, and Sam, I can't even think of how old Sam must have been at the time, 2, 3, that he sang to her. Oh, it was precious. It was precious that he sang to her. You could not find anyone who would have taken care of Mother better than Dad. And my gratitude for him for doing that. You just don't put her in a care center. You take care of her. And he did everything for her. So, amazing.
But I found her on the floor. And so I picked her up and took her, put her in bed. And it lasted for a period of about 10 months. The day that she passed away, various people came. Enough so that the bedroom upstairs was pretty well full of people at 6:30 in the afternoon. She finally just stopped breathing. It so happened that Becky was there, Patty was there, and Evelyn. Anyway, I asked all 3 of them just to check her pulse, and there was no pulse. She had just passed away. When people ask about her, oh, I'm so sorry, or otherwise express themselves, I tell them this: please don't feel bad. But my sense of her happiness where she is outweighs my sense of her absence. And if I'll behave myself, and I'm careful, I'll go over and catch up with her. And would hope that all of our posterity would do the same.
She has passed her test. She is a Latter-day Saint and has earned her reward. She has kept the faith and will inherit all that the Father has. And I pray that each of us will draw from her that strength, that we can say the same as our time comes.
Now, your grandchildren, you can grow up and be like her mama. Will be an amazing accomplishment. She was the model of perfect womanhood.
She's a fine example, and those that don't know her are going to find when they get to the other side and meet her how familiar she'll be. She'll know all about them. They will see echoes of her in themselves. That'll be a day to look forward to.
She's a great lady. Coming from great posterity, that you have an awful lot to look up to, and that you should be proud of your grandma or great-grandma, and that she was an awesome, awesome nurse and someone that took pride in her job and her fellow beings.
Well, if her posterity has some of the good qualities she had, then they must be a wonderful family. And she talked about all of her children and grandchildren, and everything I heard was always how good they were and how much fun.
You wonder, what was my great grandpa Helaman Pratt like, or Harley Pratt? And some of that you got history to talk about. But there were some powerful people there that created a culture and a legacy that lives on through me and through my children and grandchildren, and it goes on because of the things that they did. And Mom was the equal of anyone in that heritage.
We are who and what we are a lot because of who she is and what she is and what she represents and believes. She very quietly made a big difference in a lot of lives because of her unconditional love.
I remember on my mission being discouraged about proselyting and being rejected. Suddenly remembered, you know what? I have missionary heritage all over the place. You know, I can do this. This is a part of me. And so having a heritage of faith handed to you, knowing that somebody else did it, gives you strength and power. It's just important that my kids know that she cared about them and still does. You know, that she is aware of them and praying for them. You know, there's 70 million alive, but 800 and something million have lived before us, and there's more rooting for us than we know. And just the more they know Mom, the more they'll understand the strength and power that they are being given because of her faith, given now. She's definitely praying for them and watching after them. And I believe that. I believe there's eternal ties. You don't see that their influence is still felt.
She was a person you could follow her example forever, and I know she still cares about everyone. She's still very aware of each one and what you're doing, very much interested. And I'm sure she's maybe busy, but she's very aware of all of you. She had a strong testimony of the gospel. She never quit, never had any hesitation that it was true, and knew where she was going, why she was here.
Probably the biggest thing is going to be how I live my life and what I taught my own children and grandchildren, because it's her. So much of what I do, it's because of her. How do you be always service-oriented, always loving, always non-judgmental, and caring, and a peacemaker? I mean, it's Christ-like. It is the pure love of Christ. It is charity. And not very many people achieve charity in this life. Grandma and Grandpa Pratt died when I was about 8 years old is all. Among siblings, and particularly among cousins, because Mom and her siblings shared often enough and well enough about their parents. I remember Boyd Young in particular saying, "It's amazing how much I know and love my Pratt grandparents, having never met them, as if I knew them." Hopefully, somehow, our children, grandchildren, great-grandchildren will know what an angel they have in their history that impacted generations.
The peace of Christ makes fresh my heart.